From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Mark has a clip from the latest episode of Pods of Potential. I get a different perspective on Prop 12 with Brent Hershey of Hershey Ag, and Dustin visits with ag economist Frayne Olson about how wars are affecting the markets. Now let's welcome in our hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Welcome into Iowa Ag Matters, and Dustin, we continue to watch the weather situation as it is playing out in this critical part of the growing season, and it continues that we are going to be dealing with this very warm stretch in certain areas of the northern plains, but then as we look towards those longer-term forecasts for the end of the month, still calling for a little bit of a cool down, so that's going to be something we're watching, but there's also other factors that are making a play in the ag marketplace. One of those right now, of course, we're still a little bit uncertain, as we have been for quite some time, on the situation in the Middle East. So watching the oil price, the crude oil price, what's happening there. And then there's just the technical aspects of the ag marketplace right now as well, based on the numbers that we've received in some of these latest reports. And yes, we've had a lot of them here in just the past couple of weeks. So we're trying to work things out in the ag marketplace, but there's a lot happening and a lot I'm excited to talk about with Joe Camp of Comstock coming up in just a little bit.
Well, and later on, I'm also going to be talking with an economist, talking about some of the situations, how two wars are affecting this ag industry. And, with the Strait of Hormuz, President saying yesterday that we're going to take control of the Strait of Hormuz and we're going to be charging a 20% freight rate for basically maintaining it and that. So it's going to be an interesting situation to see how this plays out and how well that's going to hold up. Plus, you have Russia's export areas getting hit, European weather also taking a hit. That could be a problem for the wheat market, which could then spill over into corn. There's a lot of things to be thinking about here as we go forward. Like you said, the weather premium is still going to be the top priority no matter what. Markets, of course, a little bit lower again here the earlier today, and oil prices the highest they've been in a month, which is interesting because, Mark, we talked about this, and we'll mention, I'm sure, later on in the program too, but they said that when the oil prices started going down, it was going to be a couple weeks before that it would trickle down to the gas pumps. But since the war has started, flared back up again. Well, the gas prices only took a couple hours or a couple days for it to go back up. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out as well. All right, Joe Camp of Comstock right now talking grains with Mark Magnuson.
Joined today by Joe Camp of Comstock for the opening market discussion. Joe, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Grains were lower overnight, but now firming up. We had some bearish concern over the corn chart, a potential island reversal because of the way we started out the week, Sunday night gapping higher. Well, last night gapping back lower after having lost some steam throughout the session on Monday. But again, turning around, we've got wheat poking into the green, corn and soybeans down 2 or 3, but well off the lows, and seeing this more broader commodity market reversal. We look at the metals sharply higher, and this a response to the inflation report that was out this morning. Inflation moderating somewhat compared to expectations and giving us that shift in interest rate expectations to be more friendly for, say, the grains and other commodities. We think about that relationship with interest rates and the dollar, terms of trade and export potential. That'll be a big point of this week, exports, and will we have any more confirmation of demand to China? We did have that to start out the week, which helped soybeans. But beyond that, same questions of will it apply to corn? Will there be sustained buying interest? Will the reciprocal tariffs be lowered from here? And then the other main topics of interest, they stick with that usual focus of the last 5-6 months with Iran, the crude oil higher here and rebounding on the escalation of tensions over the Strait of Hormuz. And then the weather aspect, last Monday, rallying the market on this hot, dry turn of the forecast, and then still seeing that as a major motivator for now in a more bullish leaning that we've taken here through the first half of this new month of July.
And Joe, last week when I was going through some of the weather forecasts, some of the looks ahead towards the end of the month, yes, we are going to have this very hot period again, especially located around the Dakotas and kind of the western part of the Corn Belt, I would say, radiating that heat around. But from what I understand, there was a call for a cooler period at the end of the month. Is that still the case?
That's right. There's some disagreement between the models. As usual, you look at the European model relative to the US GFS, the European model leaning a bit wetter as we get towards the latter part of this month. And then that would mean some showers breaking up the heat in places and being a welcome dose of moisture after what will now be a dry couple of weeks in most places. As always, though, the risk is not verifying those rains that are currently in the forecast and having another shift back to something more adverse for crop conditions. Crop conditions, the subject of the trade, they unexpectedly improved last week. Not a lot of stock given in those, but we do follow the general trend, which was before this week on the way down in deterioration for both corn and soybeans. The good to excellent scores, both roughly 2/3 good to excellent. So some trouble spots in places, but also some very good potential in other places as well, especially where crops are carrying a full tank of moisture. We know that some areas of the north and into the eastern corn belt, they've been too wet at times leading into the early part of the summer. So at least that's moisture that can be helpful as it otherwise now shuts off and turns hot. So weather, as always, very topical for U.S. crop markets at this point of the year. It's also something, though, that's gained more and more traction for what's going on internationally with weather, and the wheat market's definitely shown that with strong rallies as of late to reflect not just the smaller winter wheat crop and potential stress on the spring wheat here domestically, but these crops abroad in places like France, Europe's top wheat grower, into the Black Sea region, Russia, Romania, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and then even a continent, place like Australia, a big producer who's mindful of this entrenching El Nino and what it could still mean for crop production going forward.
Get in the fair spirit at the Iowa State Fair and save before you go. The countdown is on to the Iowa State Fair, and now's the time to plan ahead. With advance admission tickets, lock in your visit before you arrive and step into 11 days of live music, fair traditions, incredible food, and summer moments you look forward to all year long. Save $5 now. Advance tickets are available now at iowastatefair.org, on the app, and at participating Iowa Hy-Vee and Fairway stores. Celebrate fair spirit at the Iowa State Fair.
August 13th through the 23rd.
Well into July, in the middle of the growing season, and the latest episode of Pods of Potential is out, and they're talking about an agronomy update now with the folks at the Iowa Soybean Association. Mark Magnuson has that for us now.
We're here with our friends at the Iowa Soybean Association's Research Center for Farming Innovations, and I'm joined today by research agronomist Shane Beck and conservation agronomist Brock Webb.
The Iowa Soybean Association's Research Center for Farming Innovation, driven to deliver productive, profitable, and sustainable practices to Iowa's farmers.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us here on the show today. And Shane, you've been on Pods of Potential before, but could you remind us, please, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at ISA?
Shane Beck, research agronomist with the Iowa Soybean Association. I actually cover districts 2 and 3, so it's north central and northeast Iowa. I've been here a little over 2.5 years now, and do a lot of work with trials on the farm with farmers.
And then also joined today by conservation agronomist Brock Webb. And Brock, this is your first time on Pods of Potential. So could you introduce yourself a little bit, please, and tell us about your role at ISA?
Yeah, I cover statewide. Not really tied to a region in the state. And I meet farmers where they are and work with them on conservation aspects of their farm and just whole farm conservation. We do a lot of infield cover crop programs, and then also focus on some edge of field programs.
How long have you worked with ISA?
A little over a year and a half.
Summer is here, and soybean fields are growing fast, but so is the threat of in-season pests and diseases. Stay informed about what's happening in fields across the state with agronomic updates from the Iowa Soybean Association's Research Agronomy team. The Walking Rows article series provides biweekly reports on what agronomists are seeing, including disease pressure, insect activity, and other challenges that could impact your yield. Access the latest Walking Rows updates at iasoybeans.com/newsroom.
All right, guys. So let's jump right into the heart of the program here today. Again, it is our growing season update, as we are now at a great point of the year to start talking about those things. as we're now 2 weeks into June. Today is June 12th as of our recording here today. And I just want to ask you both, let's start off, Brock. What are you seeing so far in fields across Iowa? Has anything jumped out to you?
Yeah, in some places in southern Iowa and central Iowa, we've seen some extreme rain events, and some of that's caused some soil erosion and just had a few concerns with that. So where people have used cover crops this spring, we've seen that pay off.
And that was what I was going to ask. Has it just been standing water? Have you seen any complete washouts for people maybe that didn't do cover crops?
Yeah, even on some no-till fields, I've seen some complete washouts and some pretty heavy erosion. So yeah, these extreme rain events have been hard on some of these fields.
And how about you, Shane? What's it been like just kind of seeing things getting started here so far and how things are looking so far across the state?
Yeah, my area tended to be a little more wet this spring, so it kind of got off to a real slow start. Not a whole lot was planted in April. It was mostly focused more towards May. So crops are a little behind compared to some of the rest of the state, but corn's looking really good. Beans are catching up really quick. So any early planted beans look really good. The corn's pretty close to canopying right now.
And how did that work out this year with the early planting? Because April, we did have that stretch where it was pretty consistent rainfall just about every 2 or 3 days in some spots. So did that cause some farmers not to get in as early as they maybe would have liked?
Yeah, especially kind of more eastern Iowa. The western part of my territory, they tended to be a little drier, so they got more planted in April than the far eastern side. So yeah, they were delayed quite a bit.
ACM and CMA award winner, Hardy.
That's my favorite country song.
Live in concert.
I woke up on the wrong side of the truck bed this morning.
August 13th, 8 p.m., Iowa State Fair Grandstand.
You got it good, old boy.
With special guest McCoy Moore. Hardy Live. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Hardy 2026.
It's time to run down those basis numbers for you here on Iowa Ag Matters on this Tuesday. I'm Dustin Huffman. Taking a look at the cash bids around the state here today. Looks like about a third of our elevators made switches in the prices. Corn took a little bit of a hit in many elevators, though we did see it improve in one of the basis changes. Let's run them down. ADM Burlington even on corn today, $4.35. Soybeans a dime under at $11.81. Cargill Eddyville 17 cents under on corn, $4.18 for the cash bid. New Co-op Algona 33 cents under on corn, $4.02. Soybeans 30 cents under, they're at $11.61 for the cash price. Ag State Sheldon 17 cents under on corn, $4.18. Soybeans 50 cents under November, they're at $11.37. Ag State Alta 29 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.06. Their soybeans are 45 cents under November, they're at $11.42. Back to August beans from here on out. Cargill Cedar Rapids, they are 8 cents under on corn, $4.27. Soybeans a dime over, cash price $12.01. Five-Star Co-op Nashua, they're 30 cents under on corn, $4.05. Soybeans 30 cents under, $11.61. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada, 17 cents under on corn, $4.18 for the cash price. ADM Des Moines even on soybeans, cash bid $11.91. New Co-op Red Oak, 21 cents under on corn, $4.14. Soybeans 30 cents under, $11.61. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 45 cents under on corn, cash bid $3.90. Soybeans 50 cents under, $11.41. New Co-op Sheraton, 25 cents under on corn, $4.10. Soybeans 30 cents under at $11.61 for the cash bid. Walk-On Feed Ranch, 41 cents under on corn, $3.94. Soybeans 58 cents under, $11.33. New Co-op Glidden, they're 31 cents under on corn, $4.04. Soybeans 30 cents under, cash bid $11.61. Innovative Ag Farley, they're 39 cents under on corn, $3.96. Soybeans 55 cents under, $11.36. And Cargill Muscatine, a dime under on corn, $4.25. Soybeans 15 cents under, $11.76. Cash corn and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. That's been a check of your basis numbers here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us.
Rod Stewart.
When I see you tonight,
A special evening with the icon.
on a downtown train,
A night of hit after hit after hit. With special guest Richard Marks. Friday, August 14th, Iowa State Fair Grandstand. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Don't miss an electrifying event. Friday, August 14th. Rod Stewart, live.
Here on Iowa Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, we are going to hear part of the conversation with Riley Smith, joined by Brent Hershey. He is Prop 12 compliant in the hog industry, and he's going to talk about some of the challenges and benefits with reaching Prop 12 compliance status and how that's affecting his operation.
Brent, I know that you are, for Proposition 12, and I would like to hear your perspective on Proposition 12 because I've read that you resisted it early on, but over time changed your mind. Could you tell us the story of that and kind of what led you to change your mind?
Well, Riley, thanks for having us on this event here. Appreciate that opportunity to get to hear our voice. I got into pig business 40 years ago. And when I got in, we did a whole business plan, and me and another gentleman got into the business, and we analyzed how to do it. And at that time, gestation crates were the standard. That's how you took care of animals. And so I don't even know if we could have got banking if we hadn't went that direction, because that was the proven way to house animals, house sows. So we did this, and the pig business has gone through lots of changes. We went through PRRS, and we went through the crash in the market at '98, but we were expanding into business, and we sold to Hatfield Quality Meats, Clemens Food Group the whole time. But as we went through the '90s, every time I would show our sow barns to anybody, we'd look into windows. We didn't take people out, biosecurity, shower. We all shower in, shower out facilities and that type of thing. They would look in there and they would say, they get to get out of those crates, right? And we'd be like, no, they live in those crates because that's the best way to take care of them, so we can feed them properly and control the feed, control the body weight, keep them from fighting. But every time the reaction would always be, really? And I have friends that are in the dairy industry, and they have freestall barns, and they would be like, "Those sows get to get out of those crates, right?" No, they don't. And then we ran into people who would come to work for us, and they'd shower in and work in the farm the first day, and they would be like, "That's ridiculous. I can't work in a barn like that. That's crazy. You can't house an animal like that." We would be like, "Oh, they just don't understand agriculture." And so we ran into that. But more and more, this issue just kept bubbling up. And then in 2002 or 2003, I think Florida passed a ban on gestation crates. Can't have them. And we were upset about that. Really, we thought, well, how can they do that? Obviously we had facilities up. We invested capital. We were depreciating barns over all these years, counting on these barns to last all this time, like every other producer. And we were faced with a change, with something that wasn't okay, wasn't accepted. That kind of ground on, and more states started banning the crate. Our market, Clemens Hatfield Quality Meats, Clemens Foods Group started to tell us in the early 2000s, there's a problem with these gestation crates. That it's going to come up. It's going to be a problem. We're not going to be able to do it eventually. And so we were listening to that too. And finally, lots of debate. I resisted it. We all don't like change. But finally, one night at the dinner table, we're talking about, of course, families hear about all this, and my family heard about it. And my children are sitting around the table. My youngest daughter looks at me and she goes, "Dad, you cannot keep housing these sows in those crates. Our generation is not going to put up with that. That's not okay." It was kind of like a watershed moment, kind of like, oh, I'm fighting this, but really, I need to be listening to what people are saying. So that's a little bit our journey. So kind of 2010, we really kind of said, whoa, we got to figure something out. This is coming. 2008, 2010, something like that.
So what did that transition look like? Because I know obviously when you're looking at the Prop 12 regulations, it's at least 24 square foot compared to, I think it's like 14 is what the standard gestation crate is right now. And obviously, over enough pins, that's a lot of space to add on. So what did that look like, changing that for your barns, and, kind of logistically, financially, how did that work for you?
So the first concern was with everybody, all producers, and is that, animal systems are tough. They're really tough. Pig production's tough. And any animal system evolves because of a lot of very good specific reasons. So the battle was to find a system to evolve to that was going to be successful and was going to be not only just successful, we were hoping to be as good as what we had at a minimum. So we experimented with different approaches. We looked at what other people were doing around the country, around the world. We work with different consultants that speak into our business. And we said, we've got to come up, and there were a lot of points, a lot of discussions with our management team, with our team members, and what could and couldn't work. So at the end of the day, we realized, number one, we have to have more square footage to house these animals. Bottom line, they're telling us you have these animals packed in these barns too tight. That's a kind of a core message for Prop 12. And number two, we had an animal in a crate that could not walk or turn around. And really, when you looked at any animal system in the world, of any other animal or any caging of any animal, there was no other animal that couldn't even turn around, couldn't walk. And, we're a society, we're taking 10,000 steps a day, this and that. So we knew we had to come up with a successful transition. And so at the end of it, we first off transitioned to the Ohio standard, where half the time our animals were in open pens after confirmed pregnant. And that happened in 2014, 15, something like that. But then Prop 12 was passed in 2018, and we had to come up with a solution to meet that, and realize that crate's not going to stand in the gestation area, in the breeding area. We're not going to be able to keep doing that. So ultimately, it meant that we had to add 40% more square footage to our buildings. Equipment-wise, wasn't that complicated, but that was, and we took that square footage. We had to build one barn. We built a barn, one site, and another site we shrunk the herd to accommodate for that square footage.
Looks like another perfect day to get out there and enjoy the summer.
You hear that? Live music, laughing kids, the roar of the rides, and someone yelling, "Corn dogs!" That's Fair Spirit at the Iowa State Fair, August 13th through 23rd in Des Moines. 11 days of blue ribbon traditions, big summer nights, incredible food, and the kind of memories you talk about all year long. This is your Iowa State Fair. Plan your visit now at iowastatefair.org.
August 13th through the 23rd.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson. Joined in midday by John Heimberg of Total Farm Marketing. John, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Well, we're getting a little more follow-through downside pressure today. Corn trading about 3 cents lower, beans 3 to 5 cents lower. Same thing out there, but the wheat market is the buck in the trend today. Wheat's trading 6, 7, 8 cents higher. Chicago 7, 8 cents higher on the KC side. Now, a couple things first off going on. Let's go touch on that wheat market. Just a lot of headline risk out there. First off, you got the USDA report Friday. U.S. wheat ending stocks down about 200 million bushels, a little less than that from last year. So that's a little bit obviously friendly to the marketplace. Biggest thing focused, I think, is on what's going on between Russia, Ukraine, and what's happening in terms of the Kerch Strait, and are those exports coming out of that strait? About 40 to 60% of Russian wheat exports move through that channel of water, and that's what caused the big jump in prices here on Friday last week, and got a little bit of follow through here yesterday, and and then recovering again off the lows so far today. So wheat's been a little bit of the counterplay so far in the grain markets at this time frame, but it's probably providing a little bit of support to that corn market, which has been slowly working off its lows. Now, obviously, everybody's talking about the short-term side, what's going on with the weather in that regard. Now, weather forecasts are starting to moderate. In fact, going into the end of the month, it looks like we got normal to below normal temperatures. The majority of the Corn Belt going to be average to above average in precipitation. So that's some of the reason we lost our gains yesterday and weaker on the start today. We did see those crop ratings for both corn and soybeans go up at 1 percentage point. Again, maybe reflecting the decent growth that we had going into this last little shot of heat. The other side of it too, if you look at the heat warnings and and issues that are out there from National Weather Service, they are in the very northern tier of
the Corn Belt. Not that it's not going to be still warm and dry across the center, but at least the oppressive heat, it looks like it's staying more in the northern tier. So again, this heat dome is just not as aggressive as maybe this market anticipated. Again, that's the reason why we rolled over a little bit yesterday, and again, trading a little bit more follow-through selling today.
That was John Heinberg with Total Farm Marketing. We will have a check of the numbers next.
No one knows your fields better than you, but it's hard to be everywhere at once. Sky Scout from Landis Cooperative helps you keep an eye on every acre throughout the growing season. Using aerial imagery and expert analysis, Sky Scout can help identify crop stress, stand concerns, nutrient issues, and other potential challenges before they become bigger problems. The result? More informed decisions and greater confidence in every pass across the field. Because the earlier you know, the more options you have. Talk with your Landis representative or call 515-817-2100 to learn more about Sky Scout today.
September corn down 3 cents at $4.38. August soybeans down 5.5 at $11.91 1/4. August soybean meal down 40 cents at $3.1680. August soybean oil down 33 cents at $72.49. Chicago wheat up 8 3/4 at $6.44. Minneapolis wheat up 4 cents at $6.57. Kansas City hard red wheat up 7.5 at $6.73 3/4. September oats down 8 1/4 at $3.47.5. On the Merc, August live cattle down $2.93 at $231.80. August feeder cattle down $5.35 at $3.49. August lean hogs down 10 cents at 98 even. August pork cutout unchanged at $114.88. Class 3 milk down a penny at $15.76. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Well, coming up now here on Iowa Ag Matters, we're going to jump back into that market action. And as we said earlier, cattle market's been taking it on the chin today. Well, we're going to get a livestock analysis here as Joe Camp of Comstock Investments rejoins the conversation with Mark Magnuson.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
Lower, yeah. This is after 11 days straight down for nearby live cattle futures. We're talking about August in the low 230s now, 233 and some change. I mentioned that because we compare it to the cash, which has come down certainly, but would still hold a strong $10 plus basis as of the last benchmark. So a question of convergence, whether or not we see some commercial interest wanting to step in and buy the board after the break here, or if it continues to be a technical spiral, one that coincides with the large funds, the money managers having been taking profit and liquidating long positions. They had built up really strong longs in live cattle futures, hence the rally to just short again of all-time highs here a month ago. But on the way down here as of late, and wondering if we find some bargain buying interest or some technical support here soon.
And you mentioned that trend of 11 straight down days in some of those cattle markets. When does that become more of a concern, Joe, if that trend continues?
Certainly, you have these old lows to watch out for. Live cattle, just now breaking below the June lows. We've got still a bit to go before feeder cattle would get there. So technically, you can have this bearish concern about flipping the broader bullish trend that we've been in now for more than a couple of years into something that's more bearish and then brings out more speculative selling interest despite the fundamentals, which still ultimately lean tight. We know about the smaller numbers. We're going to have a lot more on the fundamental guidance as we head into next week. At the end of it on Friday, the 24th, will be these big rounds of reports for livestock, the monthly cold storage report, yes, the monthly cattle on feed report, but also the big semi-annual cattle inventory update. So a lot going on, but lower for now on the cattle, just mixed for the hogs.
He is Joe Camp of Comstock. Head to Comstock.com for all of the great marketing information and resources from the team. Joe, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it, and have a great week.
Thanks a lot. You too, Mark.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and we're going to learn more about the impact of two wars right now on the agriculture landscape here in the United States and the ag marketplace. Here's Dustin with more.
Ag economist Frayne Olson says the latest developments surrounding the Strait of Hormuz could have indirect effects on agriculture through higher energy costs.
So I know that farmers are concerned about, fertilizer prices and potentially diesel fuel prices, and maybe even some natural gas or propane prices come fall if we have to do some drying. So on the energy side, it's not something that farmers need to ignore. It is something to pay attention to. That's again, we're looking forward, and there's a time delay from when things are ordered to when they actually arrive and farmers can use them. So we have to keep that in mind.
But energy is only part of the story. Olson says geopolitical events also influence grain markets through investor activity. During periods of uncertainty, money often flows into commodity investments, creating price movement beyond the traditional supply and demand fundamentals.
When the war first began and we start to see this larger rally that we got in the futures market, a lot of that was because of the investment community. As stock markets fell and financial instruments fell, they moved into the commodity indexes, primarily going after the energy markets. But those indexes are prepackaged, which means that when you purchase those indexes, you automatically get a small amount of corn, soybeans, wheat, and even some of the meat complex. So the fundamental connection between energy and grains, for example, through biofuels. But then there's this investment connection. And a lot of that rally and then the corresponding drop that we saw in futures market prices was because of this investment flux. So we'll have to wait to see what happens in the stock markets and whether we see a repeat of that or not.
Olson says crude oil prices remain one of the best indicators to watch as markets react to the latest developments in the Middle East. The long-term impact of the new shipping fee through the Strait of Hormuz remains uncertain, and markets are still trying to determine how it could affect global trade.
We were looking at crude oil prices, West Texas Intermediate crude, in the mid-70s. It was well over into the 90s and almost $100, as we saw the peak of the pricing earlier this year. So we'll wait to see. Some of this will start playing out. In my opinion, the easiest way to try and trace what the market's thinking and what that might do to grain prices is just to watch the crude oil prices. If you start to see crude oil starting to rise and rise fairly quickly, you know that something's going on and something's happening. Will this 20% fee, is that going to be low enough to get product through the strait? I don't know what that's going to do to any potential insurance rates. Is this 20% fee really going to effectively choke off that supply chain, or are they going to be willing to pay it and get product through the strait? Nobody really knows at this stage.
At the same time, the war between Russia and Ukraine continues to affect agricultural markets. Olson says recent attacks on Russian export infrastructure and weather concerns in Europe are creating additional uncertainty for wheat supplies, with the potential to spill over into corn as well.
They have been able to make some drone attacks onto some port facilities. There's a canal or a river that runs between the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea. And that route is one of the major ways that Russia is able to get some of their wheat products, as well as some sunflowers, some oilseeds, from the Azov Sea into the Black Sea. And then from the Black Sea, it goes into the Mediterranean. And those facilities that have been damaged now, some of those are grain facilities, and they're expected to restrict the flow of wheat. And that's important not only for wheat prices, but also when you look at Europe. Europe has had this really, really hot weather. The wheat crop in Europe is far enough along. There is some damage, but it's pretty minimal. But the corn crop in some of the European states has really been hammered. And of course, corn and corn supplies, as well as feed wheat, for some of their livestock could be important. So there might be even some spillover into the corn market.
With two major geopolitical conflicts affecting global markets simultaneously, Olson says traders are continuing to factor additional risk into grain prices. Combined with the weather uncertainty that always accompanies the middle of July, those concerns could provide support for grain markets in the short term.
My take on it is I think it will be supportive because as we start adding some of the risk premium into the marketplace, just concerns about the availability of product coming out of that region in general. Whenever you start to restrict supply, at least in the short term, that puts the product that is available for shipping at a little higher premium. So I do think we're going to see a risk premium start to build. Combine that with possibly some weather issues because we're just in the middle of July right now, so there's still plenty of weather to be talking about. I think it'll be supportive. Overall, politically, from a geopolitical standpoint, I think this will be short-term supportive.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Well, that puts the wraps on Iowa Ag Matters. Thanks to Mark, thanks to Riley, and thanks to you for listening. We'll see you back here again tomorrow on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.